Supreme Court begins hearing perjury lawsuit brought against President Muhammadu Buhari in connection with this year's presidential elections. And the Nigerian Senate is also being sued for its plan to spend 5.5 billion naira on cars. In international news, buildings destroyed, submerged as Category 5 Hurricane Dorian hits Bahamas Islands. And in sports, Nigerian teams arrive in Abuja to a rousing welcome after an outstanding performance at the African Games.
This is ANN News.
I'm Olajumoke Olatunji. A group, the Citizens Action for Change, says it is happy with a police order to arrest leaders of Islamic movements in Nigeria, IMN, across the country. Inspector General of Police Mohammed Adamu is reported to have ordered the dismantling of any terror infrastructure traced to the group. The IG had told his operatives in an order on Friday that the force would not allow Shiite members to violate the court-ordered prescription of the group. Adamu said the group was responsible for the killing of Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of operations in the Federal Capital Territory Police Command, Umar Usman, and a youth corps member, Precious Owolabi, 3 weeks ago. President of the Citizen Action for Change, Ayokunle Bakare, says the same treatment should be extended to the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, and its members both at home and abroad. The Supreme Court has begun hearing the lawsuit accusing President Muhammadu Buhari of perjury in connection with this year's presidential elections. The lawsuit was filed by a legal practitioner and two others, the appellants Kalu Kalu, Labaran Ismail, and Hazi El Kuruz, wants the Supreme Court to nullify President Buhari's candidacy in the February election because he allegedly perjured himself. They headed to the nation's highest court after their lawsuit was dismissed by the Court of Appeal in Abuja in July. That court had said the case was statute bar and could not be heard because it was filed outside the 14 days provided by the law. The appellant wants the Supreme Court to set aside that judgment. The one President Buhari disqualified from holding office because they said he had lied on oath on the Form 001 he submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, when he sought clearance for the presidential election. And the Senate is being sued by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, joined by Budget, Enough is Enough, and nearly 7,000 other Nigerians. They're asking the Federal High Court to foil the plan by National Assembly Service Commission to provide 5.5 billion naira to purchase luxury cars for principal members of the Senate. The plaintiffs, whose lawsuit was filed by the Federal High Court in Lagos, says the proposed spending is antithetical to the constitutional oath of office taken by members to perform their functions in the interest of the well-being and prosperity of Nigerians and its citizens. They say this was contained in the 7th schedule of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The plaintiffs further said there would be no economic benefits to the nation if the luxury vehicles were purchased. It also says the money could be better allocated to more important business of the National Assembly, like constituency projects and National Assembly endowed educational scholarships. Environmental sanitation was not designed as a violent event. It was set up for people to clean their environments for health and hygiene reasons. But that was not the case on Saturday when the Nigerian Prison Service warder was beaten to a pulp by some hoodlums in Abeokuta as the warder attempted to arrest them during the monthly Ogun State environmental sanitation. Report says the hoodlums were involved in activities that violated the law governing the 3-hour exercise. The environmental task officer was said to have stopped the hoodlums who were roaming about the environment where the exercise was taking place. The hoodlums were said to have been infuriated by the officials' attempt to arrest them, so they pounced on the officer simply identified as Ahmed. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Yetunde Dina, has said in a statement that at least 80 persons in Abeokuta and Ijebu-Ode had been arrested for various infractions of the environmental laws of the state. She said the ministry would continue to prosecute those who contravene the law. She also said it was mandatory for residents to clean their environment during the monthly sanitation exercise. The case has been made by airlines in Nigeria against high cost of aviation fuel. It said those costs are eating deep into their bottom line and would like the federal government to reduce the price of the commodity to help their profitability. Reporter Kelechi Emekalam has the story.
High costs of aviation fuel. That's a major problem industry players in Nigeria face. Despite being one of the world's largest oil-producing countries, Nigeria is still largely dependent on imports. Refineries are dated and poorly maintained.
Basically, they've not been maintained for a very long time. So some of those lines went rusted and couldn't produce quality or clean aviation fuel. And of course, you know, aviation fuel is very sensitive. If there's any little contamination, it can bring down an aircraft.
In the past 3 years, prices of aviation fuel has more than doubled, from around 30 cents to an average 69 cents per litre. A Boeing 737 aircraft, for instance, would require up to 3,500 litres of fuel for an hour's flight. Quite a huge sum for airline operators here.
Their operating cost, the bulk of it comes from aviation fuel. In fact, it's between 30 and 40% of the operating cost. Now, that shows that that huge cost will definitely have to be transferred to the consumer, which is why tickets in Nigeria are indeed very high. You're flying 1 hour in Nigeria, sometimes you pay up to 40,000, which is over $100, you know. Sometimes you pay even close to $200, $150 for just less than an hour flight. It's quite high. And that is basically because we import this fuel, you know, this aviation fuel. And this is even, it probably would have even been much higher if there was no subsidy from the government.
The high cost of aviation fuel oftentimes forces most international airlines to fly to neighboring countries like Ghana and Togo to refuel. It results to an economic loss for Nigeria, as the country cannot benefit from those charges associated with fuel. All hope is not lost, as Nigeria's state oil firm NNPC has said it plans to revamp the refineries before year-end to help save billions of dollars on fuel imports. Also, with the coming of the Dangote refinery sometime next year, it's expected that significant amount of fuel would be refined locally, ultimately eliminating all the costs associated with fuel imports.
Coming up, African stories. 6 persons die in Kenya National Park floods. And later, international news. Buildings destroyed, submerged as Category 5 Hurricane Dorian hits Bahamas Islands.
You are watching ANN.
Dear Mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Kemi just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Floods at a Kenya National Park have swept away a tall group. 2 persons are reported dead and 5 others injured in the flash floods. Kenya Wildlife Service says 5 Kenyan nationals, a local tour guide, and a foreigner were involved. Park officials say they have recovered 2 bodies while search and rescue operations continue. The victims were part of a 12-member group that was visiting the Hell's Gate National Park, located about 60 miles northwest of Nairobi. A policeman said the rest of the missing are presumed dead because, based on reports from survivors, Hell's Gate National Park was set up in 1984 and it houses 3 geothermal stations. It was once the tributary of a prehistoric lake whose downhill gorges often flood. The Somalian capital of Mogadishu has been rocked by a huge blast on Monday. Reports say the blast that has been identified as a car bomb might have hit a checkpoint on the main road that leads out of the city. Several persons, including security officers, were reported killed in Afgoye town on the outskirts of the Somali capital. Somalia's security forces say they have tried to repel the attack because before the car explosion. Reports say 3 attackers got out of the vehicle, which was laden with explosives, and got into a shootout with security forces. Some say the attackers' intended target was a nearby tax office. The fate of the attackers is not yet known, but some sources say they might have died in the explosion. Militant group Al-Shabaab often carries out attacks in Mogadishu since it was forced out of the city in 2011. Uganda is trying all it could to ensure Ebola does not ravage the country as it has done in the Democratic Republic of the Congo after the death of a 9-year-old girl over the weekend. Isabel Nakoya reports the country is stepping up efforts to fight the disease.
The 9-year-old Congolese girl entered Uganda with her mother through the Mpondwe border point in Kasese. She had been in isolation at the Bwera Health Center in Uganda's western district of Kasese before she died.
Upon the request of the father, plans were underway to repatriate the body to DRC for safety and dignified burial.
Health officials at the border found she had symptoms similar to that of Ebola. Samples taken from the child tested positive for the virus.
She had symptoms of a very high fever. She was vomiting. She had general body weakness, and she also had a skin rash. And that's why her mother actually thought she had measles. But she also presented with unexplained bleeding coming from her mouth. And those are also symptoms of the Ebola virus.
This is the 4th confirmed case of Ebola in Uganda. In June, a family of 3 entering from the DRC were diagnosed with the virus. 2 of them died in Uganda, and a 3rd later died after returning to Congo, where an outbreak has lasted since August 2018. It's claimed the lives of over 2,000 people in the DRC, and efforts to stop the spread across the border have now been stepped up.
These 180 volunteers are spread all over those districts, and each of them is trained in conducting a surveillance of every person coming into Uganda from the DRC right now. They are all trained in screening, temperature screening, or identifying the symptoms of Ebola.
Uganda has vaccinated close to 5,000 frontline workers against Ebola. The Ministry of Health says the country will remain on high alert and will maintain screening measures at all entry points to avoid further spread of the deadly virus.
Can you imagine a day when you would not contend with cars on your streets and be able to move freely across the streets and by roads in your city? Well, that's exactly what happened in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital, when residents observed a car-free day in the city. But it's not a new thing to them. Koleta Wanjohi reports.
Moving away from the stress of daily heavy traffic, residents in Addis Ababa blocked off some streets to enjoy a car-free day.
The initiative began in December 2018, and since then the city has managed to maintain it as a monthly event.
The primary motive is to promote healthy living.
We can decrease those non-communicable diseases by doing sport, okay? So Ethiopia must be develop the culture of doing sport minimum of once in monthly. Then we come to every week and daily and so on, okay?
Zemi Yunus, who has an autistic son, Jojo, says the events have become therapeutic for him.
come with my families. I come with Jojo. So this is a good therapy at the same time. You know, it's in an open air. Roads are closed. It's safe, and you know, we join with other people. We share love. We share peace. We share, you know. So this is beautiful, and we want to enjoy it. That's why I'm here.
Others come for the mass workout sessions, which are led by professionals. The country's air quality is considered as moderate by experts, but the Ministry of Health says with the fast growth of cities, air pollution could increase to irreversible levels if not checked. According to the World Health Organization, air pollution alone caused some 4.2 million deaths in 2016 globally. Rwanda began the car-free day in 2016. Kenya suggested the idea but is yet to implement it. Not all Addis Ababa city residents have embraced the car-free day, but Ethiopia is determined to keep encouraging more to join every month, and with time, roll out the plan to other major cities in the country.
When we return, international news. Buildings destroyed as Category 5 Hurricane Dorian hits Bahamas Islands. And in sports, Nigerian teams arrive in Nigeria to a rousing welcome after an extended performance at the African Games.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and World Events. Hurricane Dorian, one of the most powerful Atlantic hurricanes on record, has hit the Bahamas early Monday as a catastrophic Category 5 storm. The U.S. National Hurricane Center has reported Dorian made landfall near Marsh Harbor on Great Abaco Island on Sunday. An update from the center says the hurricane will move dangerously close to the Florida East Coast late Monday through Tuesday night. Category 5 is the highest for hurricanes, with winds of 157 miles per hour or even higher. Power outages in the Bahamas will likely last for weeks or months. People should expect long-term water shortages. America has experienced another gun violence, this time in West Texas, where 7 persons died in a random shooting rampage on Saturday. Odessa City Police spokesman Steve Lucius says at least 1 person remains in a life-threatening condition. 19 others were injured in Odessa and Midland in the random shooting spree that began after a traffic stop. After a pursuit, police officers killed the gunman outside a movie theater in Odessa. Local police would only say the gunman was a white male in his mid-30s. The Texas Department of Public Safety says the gunman's rampage began when 2 troopers attempted to stop his car on a highway. The official said after the initial shooting, the suspect continued driving into Odessa and shot another person on the highway before driving around the eastern part of the city where there were multiple crime scenes and victims. At some point, the suspect stole a mail van and committed more shootings. Despite having fighting in the north, U.S. Special Envoy to Afghanistan has met the Afghan president in Kabul to brief him on Washington's peace negotiations with the Taliban. President Ashraf Ghani's spokesman confirmed the meeting took place on Sunday night at the presidential palace in the capital, shortly after the U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad arrived from Qatar following the conclusion of the 9th round of talks with the Taliban. Khalilzad says the U.S. and the Taliban are the threshold of an agreement. The Taliban attacked Puri-Kuma, capital of Baghdad province, on Sunday, just a day after hundreds of its fighters overran parts of Kunduz, a strategic city and the capital of the eponymous province that the group has twice come close to taking in recent years. Argentina's financial status has taken a new turn, and the government has imposed currency controls. This means companies now must get permission from the Central Bank of Argentina to buy foreign currency or precious metals and to transfer that money abroad. Exporters must also liquidate their foreign exchange earnings in the local market within 5 days. Individual Argentines are now limited to freely buy up to $10,000 a month. If they wish to purchase more, they would need the approval of the central bank. There are no limits on how much companies or individuals can withdraw from their bank accounts. President Mauricio Matri's government describes this new method as a series of extraordinary measures to keep the economy functioning and to protect employees and consumers. Hundreds of people gathered at the largest square in the Polish capital to mark the 80th anniversary of the start of World War II. Germany President Frank-Walter Steinmeier asked for forgiveness for his country for the suffering of the Polish people during World War II, as Poland marked 80 years since the Nazi German invasion that unleashed the deadliest conflict in human history. Poland lost a fifth of its population, including the vast majority of its 3 million Jewish citizens. After the war, the shattered capital of Warsaw had to rise again from ruins, and Poland remained under Soviet domination until 1987. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence attended the ceremony in place of his boss, President Donald Trump, who canceled his trip because of the approaching Hurricane Dorian. For some in Poland, World War II and its commemorations are still a live political issue, just weeks before a national vote. Still ahead, sports. Nigerian teams arrive in Abuja to a rousing welcome after an outstanding performance at the African Games. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Team Nigeria are back in the country after finishing second overall at the just concluded 12th African Games in Rabat, Morocco. Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, and other officials were on hand to welcome the athletes and staff. Dare commended the contingent for representing the country well and promised them better welfare and preparations for future international competitions. Team Nigeria capped a memorable outing in Morocco with a second-place finish behind defending champions Egypt, which emerged on top of the medal table with 99 gold, 96 silver, and 69 bronze medals, while Nigeria won a total of 121 medals. Ghana is scheduled to host the next edition in 2023. Nigeria's senior men's basketball team, D Tigers, lost to Russia on their first outing at the FIBA World Events in China. Nigeria lost to Argentina today in their second group game. Not a very good start. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.